So now I want to talk about why in the air the fuels and requirements might be totally different on the ground, and the needs use of a particular so-called renewable energy. We often talk about biofuels and turning waste into fuels such as household waste or methane or incinerator plants. I don't see that as the future for ground transportation. Why? Well, there's been studies that you need 50 to 100 times the amount of land for biofuel, even efficient biofuel, compared to making little small scale solar plays to power a car, and solar places have become faster, more efficient, faster. You also don't take up as much water, damage the environment as much if you're using for solar or land that needs to be grown for food. So solar power and wind power too, and everything is much more. And batteries are getting so much better. However, batteries work very well on the ground for particular reasons that do not apply in the air. Batteries on the ground, you can stop so much more often on the ground than you can travel in the air. We still need a lot more electric stations for it, but you can stop much more. In the air, you might have to cross over oceans or many places, or you might not want to stop at an airport and do all the complicated things. The reason why this is important is when you stop, if you stop every 100 miles compared to every couple thousand miles, you only need the batteries to last every couple 100 miles or 100 miles, which means you can make the batteries weigh a lot less. When you're in the air, you have to make the batteries weigh a lot more. But it's even worse because the more weight you have of batteries, it adds on faster, because then you also have to carry around the weight of the batteries. So let's say you have 1,000 pounds of batteries just to carry the cargo. If you need a tenth of that, if the cargo, if 1,000 pounds of batteries carries 10,000 pounds of cargo, which is ridiculously low efficiency, but let's say it did, then you can also need an extra 111 pounds of batteries to carry the batteries. You need to add that on. In a car, that's not as big deal because you're traveling less far, so you don't need as many batteries in the first place. So the extra batteries you have to add on is actually a lot less. If you're only traveling 100 miles, then you can make the batteries back 10 times smaller. Then the extra batteries you add on is even smaller. And it means that you can save a lot more with these smaller distances where you can recharge faster. We also have better ways of recharging potentially in the ground in the future, where people are working on wirelessly recharging cars on roads with special induction things that it's like wireless charging with phones, where you have magnetic field set up or electric field set up that can charge it remotely. People have worked about cable solutions. You can also have ground transportation like electric trolleys and stuff like that. So electric becomes a lot more practical on the ground. Another thing about the weight requirements is it's more already because of you have to lift the whole plane again. You have to work so much harder. But when you're traveling over long distances with fuel becomes lighter the longer you travel with it. The reason is because you burn the fuel, and that burn exhaust goes around. You can see that in the car. Your car tank slowly empties. So the longer the trip, the bigger that deal comes. It means you only have to carry about less than half the fuel than with a battery for long distances. When it comes over short distances, there's almost no saving because the weight is about the same. Over long distances, the saving of weight becomes huge. You have to carry a lot less fuel. And a classic thing is if you need to travel 100 miles, fill up a huge gas tank, the gas is going to by the end of the trip, all the gas is gone. You carry the weight of half the gas. Trip, you carry the full battery weight. If the batteries are almost all the mass of the car, that's a big deal. Planes have a huge, massive problem with this stuff. Planes only travel, commercial planes, 1 to 5 miles per gallon. So it's a huge deal. So this is a market where biofuels and waste fuels could be huge. It's not as big as the car or shipping industry on land with trains and everything, it's not nearly that big. There's not nearly as many charging options, too, and it's a lot more of a penalty. So if we look at this as a side venture just for these vehicles, it might revolutionize the industry compared to using up 50 to 100 times the amount of land, just using up what we have. And we have huge waste fields we could use up for this stuff. The other thing about it is we can discuss this also for boats. With boats, the calculation is very different. Boats are the least dependent travel on weight, as some of most, because water, the buoyancy of water makes it almost weightless. It's much more, now, all weight is, but compared to everything else, you can pull tons behind you if they're on a good raft. However, you have the same problem with long distances that you have in cars, so it's a lot more tricky. So I was thinking about some solutions to this, and people thought about some of this. One is that we're continuously making boats more efficient. One is figuring out more efficient routes and everything. Some people have now started to use wind power again on boats, like giant sails for these giant cargo ships, or even wind generators to power them. Some people have just the nuclear, which I don't like, but this could help solve part of the problem, or we could have hybrid boats. But another thing that I recently thought about that maybe could help extend their life is having concentrated photovoltaics or solar cells. So concentrated photovoltaics are a way of, instead of having a solar cell, you use a bunch of mirrors or lenses or both. And some of these lenses can be very thin and just blow up or unroll. And some of these mirrors too can unfold. And you have them concentrate light on a solar cell. The solar cell actually gains efficiency remarkably by something called the Carnot cycle. And basically, the more concentrated the light is on the solar cell, the more focused and intense, the more efficient the light is. And we'll go over that in a separate video. But these things could fold up. These concentrators could fold up so don't take a lot of space at a port. But after the port, they could unfurl and make this huge giant platform that could really power much more energy with a ship, maybe even entire ship, and much faster. Or maybe not an entire ship, but it means you could carry less batteries. So that's a unique solution, but these platforms can't fly, or they would not be practical on land. Also, you would have to refold these patterns during bad storm events, during bad weather events, so you can't always have them deployed, which will mean thinking about that in the future. Other ways is we can look at more efficient routes. We can look at making sure that planes are not empty or cargo ships are not empty by really stuffing stuff full, making bigger planes that carry more passengers, less air travel in general for just people traveling less in air, people commuting less, carpooling more, all these different solutions. You could figure out maybe doing some airplanes that are not full, having some of it to the cargo, so much more. But I hope you find some of these ideas insightful. If you have any comments or questions or ideas you want to add on, please leave them in the comments below. Or if you're someone that knows me, you can DM me directly. But I do ask a small favor from you is really leave a like behind. It really helps out the channel. And even better yet, subscribe if you haven't. And even better yet, share and get other people to subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much. And I hope you found this insightful and interesting.